For inviting me today. I'm Cliff Pryor, CEO of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, the GSG. We were founded on the belief that investment done well can benefit all people and our shared planet. Our mission is to advance to influence the achievement of positive social and environmental outcomes through an effective and diverse global movement. This movement is now over 60 countries strong, 34 of which have already reached the status of a national advisory board for impact, and that's including in Japan. As inequality continues to rise around the world and climate change threatens the future of our planet, it is clear that our economic and financial systems are not working to achieve to solve the challenges that we face. Governments and philanthropy alone cannot turn this around. Private capital has a key role to play through impact investment. Impact investment seeks to correct social inequalities and protect the environment, whilst also providing profits for investors. And it does so by optimizing risk, return, and impact, all considered together. In 2021, the United Kingdom held the presidency of the G7, 8 years since the 2013 UK presidency, which launched the first Impact Taskforce and also launched the GSG. The GSG worked with our Foreign and Development Agency and with the UK National Advisory Board to create an industry-driven Impact Taskforce, the ITF. It was chaired by the Right Honourable Nick Hurd, a former minister. The ITF brought together 120 high-level leaders from across sectors and across 40 countries, with the aim to answer crucial questions about moving private capital at scale for public good, with real impact without leaving people or places behind. And I'm grateful for Mr. Sugano, Mr. Ishii, and Mr. Yanagi for their full participation in the task force. The questions were tackled through 2 work streams, the first of which was led by the GSG and by S&P Global, and it addressed impact transparency, integrity, and harmonization. And the second was led by the UK National Advisory Board, focused on mobilizing capital across asset classes into emerging economies to support a just transition, that's social and environmental justice, to achieve a sustainable future. The members worked for 5 months to answer these questions, and the outputs were launched and handed to the UK government in December 2021. The key recommendations on the first work stream include calling on governments to support and participate in the IFRS efforts to create an international sustainability standards board, the ISSB, a standards board for global reporting on enterprise value with harmonized standards, and then calling on an urgent build on this baseline. For example, changes in company law, scope of directors' duties, voluntary and mandatory disclosure, further evolution of accounting and assurance standards to cover all impact data, and then urgent work towards mandatory accounting for impact based on greater transparency, harmonized global standards, and data integrity to deliver effective approaches to impact valuation, covering both enterprise and externalities. And then in the second work stream, coordinated and urgent movement to remove the many barriers that currently limit the flow of institutional investors' capital into emerging economies. Recognition of the need for integration of environmental and social factors to drive a just transition. 3 elements to that: climate action, social economic equity, and increasing community voice. And then supporting mobilization of capital by enhancing the role of multilateral development banks and development finance institutions, and an increase in their transparency. Now, taken together, these recommendations provide a change in the system of finance, recognizing the externalities of companies' actions for the long term, whilst opening up channels of finance right now. So what have been the reactions? Well, the reactions of these recommendations have been very strong. In the first week after the launch, 3 million social media responses, and over 70,000 video views of our material. And that's continuing to develop. The UK government is working with the Global Steering Group to identify the first round of actions, and it will also provide a formal governmental response. The UK is working up an energy transition for emerging economies, from high carbon to clean energy, and backed with that just transition approach, social support alongside the climate initiatives. National advisory boards have been seeking discussions like this here in Japan, translating reports into country languages, creating conferences and sessions, from the main Latin American event known as the FLEA to the individual country events as here today. 9 countries in Latin America have signed up to a joint approach to create an advisory for the implementation of the Impact Taskforce. In the EU, the Netherlands is working to promote the ITF, engaging ministers, local and national government, and market regulators. Spain and South Korea are separately bringing together groups of companies to understand and test out the ITF recommendations in reality. South Korea is also creating an impact valuation group. In South Africa, the National Advisory Board is working on how it can become a platform for energy transitions and for the social transitions that must work alongside. And of course, it's really important to note that Emmanuel Faber has taken up the chair of the new International Sustainability Standards Board and is currently recruiting its board members. So things are moving fast, and now we come to the German presidency of the G7. The GSG and the German National Advisory Board have already had 4 ministerial meetings and discussions with the G7 Sherpa. As the German government is only recently formed, discussions are still continuing. However, we know that it's likely that they will pick up a number of the task force recommendations, focusing on impact infrastructure and mobilization of funds to emerging markets, and on support to the ISSB baseline and efforts to build impact valuation. The G20 has the Indonesian presidency in 2022, and this is significant because it's the first time the G20 has been held by an emerging economy. Now, the G20 is a much more complex system than the G7. It requires consensus across all 20 countries. However, we're already seeing that ensuring sustainable and inclusive growth is very high on their priority list. A standing set of initiatives, more coming in week by week. And of course, it's Japan that takes on the G7 presidency in 2020. So what do we expect by 2023? We would expect that the ISSB has brought together a global baseline of harmonized standards for impact. We expect that voluntary disclosure of impact against these standards will be becoming commonplace, with some countries, such as the EU, making impact disclosure mandatory. A new impact valuation reporting entity is likely to place monetary values on initial areas of business such as environment, nature-based, and jobs. And we should see an opening up of some of the barriers to funds flowing into emerging economies, with changes to the mandates of development finance institutions, and that there will be overwhelming pressures, political pressures, to ensure that there is social justice in measures required for necessary climate mitigation, a just transition to a net zero carbon and socially balanced future. The honoured Japan members of the task force will tell you much more and give their insights, I'm sure, into 2022 and beyond. And meanwhile, I believe that these recommendations and the immense urgency for them will create breakthrough changes. Now, already we're seeing ESG investing is now over 30% of all listed assets globally. We're seeing that green, social, and sustainability bonds are ramping up rapidly. Impact standards allow clarity of what's really happening. The GFANS Alliance, which was put together in the COP26, an alliance for net zero has brought together over $130 trillion of private capital AUM across 450 firms and 45 countries. Now, Japan has created outstanding initiatives in its financial sector in the past. So, for example, the concept of universal ownership model for pension and insurance funds has been taken up by many other countries, with Japan the lead on that work. But in the next few years, the pace of change will happen very rapidly. And it's important for all of the financial centers, including Japan, to be ready for this change in pace and to start now. We know there is an urgent need to narrow the gap between promises and delivery in intergovernmental discussions like the COP series. We know that private capital and enterprise will be critical to our shared future. The challenges should not be underestimated, but we do now have a window of opportunity because climate change is now all around us. In more and more countries, people can see and feel the changes already starting. This isn't just about 2050, it's about now. And citizens and consumers are shifting their values because of this. Digital technologies are creating the opportunities to deliver and measure social and environmental impact in ways that were previously inconceivable. And many of the big growth areas for future investing are impact areas: health, education, aging, society, clean energy, sustainable agriculture, all positive impact areas. And now more and more influential leaders are showing the way. I hope and believe that this Impact Task Force will provide a pathway for a better future and will assist your efforts to create a sustainable future, a future where Japan can be a leader towards a better and safer world. Thank you.